Greetings loyal subscribers and honoured guests. The next game that I would like to talk about is Soul Calibur 3, but first a bit of history. The first game in the series, entitled Soul Blade on the PlayStation and Soul Edge in the arcade, was fairly popular and incredibly well made. It looks great on the humble PS1, with large detailed polygonal fighters and very detailed arenas. The music was fantastic too, with not one but two different soundtracks on the disc. For some strange reason though, when it came to releasing a sequel, Namco decided to rebrand the entire series as Soul Calibur, a name that has remained to this day. The first game to be given the Calibur moniker was a release title for the brand new Sega Dreamcast, and no fighting game ever bettered it on that machine. The huge story mode was amazing at the time, as was the huge amount of unlockables. Of course, the game also looked, sounded and played better than ever thanks to the power of the Dreamcast, something that Namco was able to tap into with ease. In fact, Namco has a habit of getting the absolute best out of whatever console they make their games for. Soul Calibur 2 was a multi-format release across the PlayStation 2, Xbox and GameCube, with each version receiving one exclusive character. The PS2 got Heihachi from Tekken, the Xbox got Spawn, but by far the best of these was the addition of Link to the GameCube version. Soul Calibur 2 continued the tradition of fantastic story modes, this time including RPG-style dungeons that had to be explored to find loot, random fights and end-of-level bosses. Finally we come to Soul Calibur 3, which was a PS2 exclusive. It features the biggest roster of characters seen in the series thus far, with a whole bunch of them being unlockable by various means. The story mode has changed yet again in this one, and I'm not really convinced it's a step forward. More on that later. I remember renting this game briefly when it came out because I was curious and feeling a little bit disappointed, so I never bought my own copy until recently. Let's investigate why Soul Calibur is an extremely solid game, but perhaps not the best in the series to date. The Soul Calibur series has always contained an ongoing saga about the evil sword Soul Edge and its good counterpart, Soul Calibur. In the first game, the pirate Cervantes wielded the evil blade and was the endgame boss. Then Siegfried got a hold of it and became Nightmare, a corrupted version of himself. The opening cutscene from Soul Calibur 3 shows Siegfried finally managing to break free of the blade and become his normal self again. Zasalamel, a brand new character for this entry, seeks to deliberately merge with the Soul Edge because he wants the power it promises, so every version of the Soul Calibur 3 story ends with him successfully getting hold of it and turning into the Abyss, the brand new end of game boss. Except there is a second, even nastier end boss called Night Terror that I haven't managed to encounter yet. Tales of Swords is essentially the story mode of Soul Calibur 3, but it is much shorter and more basic than those previous games in the series. They have basically taken their standard arcade mode, which is comprised of about 10 different battles, and then added some text-based plot and A and B choices in between each one. Your choices will affect which characters you will fight along the way, and they will sometimes be unlocked when you defeat them. It's a bit of a letdown compared to the previous games, but there are other modes that I will get to in the game mechanics section. Of course, a new game means new characters, and in addition to the Reaper of Death, Zasalamel, we also have Tira, who is a demoness in the thrall of the Soul Edge on a mission to find a new body worthy of its power. Then there is Setsuka, a Japanese warrior who wields an umbrella with the sword in its handle. There are many more new characters than this to be unlocked, some of them bespoke creations that look and play like unique new characters, others of which are basically clones of existing characters wearing a new skin. Revenant, for example, is a skeleton with the moveset of Cervantes. In terms of characters, Soul Calibur 3 is still way up there in terms of sheer volume. While the visuals of Soul Calibur 3 aren't a huge leap in quality over those of the second game in the series, this is still one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 2. The characters and stages do contain a bit more detail than before, but at first glance it's really not that obvious. The game runs at full widescreen and in 60Hz mode, and Namco have really managed to squeeze all of the power out of the emotion engine for this one. Voiceover work in the Calibur series is most definitely on the cheesy side, with the announcer famously banging on about the tale of souls and swords eternally retold at every opportunity, but it is quite well produced. Sound effects are solid too, with the air being filled with the sounds of clashing blades, nunchucks being whipped around and staves striking flesh, as you would expect. The soundtrack is solid, but is starting to sound a bit samey now. Gone are the more dance-style tunes that appeared in the Soul Blade on the PS1. Instead, what we have in the Calibur games is all epic fantasy battle music. It fits the theme, but it is lacking in variety. Some of the tunes in Soul Calibur 3 are brand new, others are classics that we've heard before, and it's all good stuff for the most part. Soul Calibur 3, like all the other games in the series, is a weapon-based fighter where even absolute novices and casual fighting game players can have a good time, due to the way that the moves flow intuitively into each other. Of course, those who practice and know the moves by heart will always manage to pummel those who just flail around and spam the buttons, but the Calibur series has always been on the friendlier end of the fighting genre. You have a horizontal attack, a vertical attack, a kick and a guard button on the face of the controller. Holding down your horizontal attack button along with the guard button will instigate a throw move which changes depending on which direction your opponent is facing. Then there is a powered up attack which can be activated easily by pressing one of the shoulder buttons. Your character will glow for a brief moment and will deal much more damage if they connect. In terms of modes, in addition to the standard versus mode for playing against another human, Soul Calibur has 4 different options on offer for solo players. First is Tales of Souls, which I already covered, and is your basic arcade style mode with some story elements added. After that you have Chronicles of the Sword, which tries to combine a very basic strategy game with conventional fighting game battles, and I don't really think it works very well. Then the third solo mode is World Competition, which is extremely difficult. The data of your opponents you face is all based upon that of real players that are experts at the game, so be prepared to have your ass handed to you unless you are also a master. Finally, there is Soul Arena, which is a series of fights, each with their own unique conditions. For example, the first one is a cage match where you will only deal damage by bouncing your opponent off the walls. In addition to all these modes, there is also a brand new character creator which is quite powerful and has proven to be extremely popular with fans of the series. You can make your own fighter based on a blueprint of an established character archetype such as ninja, thief, etc., and then choose what they will look like, what they wear, and their colour scheme. These creations can then be used in some of the other modes excluding Tales of Swords. If you create multiple characters, then they can be used as your different units in Chronicles of the Sword. The range of clothing and weapons that they can wield is fairly limited to begin with. I'm giving Soul Calibur 3 a 5 in this category due to the inclusion of the character creator. It's a great addition to the series that not only allows you to play as your own creations in the different game modes, but it also makes it easier for Namco's internal team to greatly expand upon the roster of unlockable characters by making them with the editor. Granted, the characters made in this way aren't as unique and interesting as the ones they've created from scratch, but they still contribute to the huge roster and give you something fun to unlock as you play. The huge character roster and the way you gradually unlock more of them the more you play is a great incentive to keep coming back to Soul Calibur 3. After my initial disappointment in the Tales of Souls mode, I started to warm up to it a bit and enjoy it for what it is. I still wish that there was a deep story mode in there like there has been in previous games, but what is available instead will still give you many hours of enjoyment and the quality level is as high as ever. A used copy of this game will currently set you back between £5 and £10, which is very reasonable and superb value. It may be tempting to skip to one of the later games in the series, but this one is still worth checking out in my opinion. Due to the vast range of modes, characters and unlockables, Soul Calibur 3 is a winner despite taking a step backwards in certain aspects, such as the story mode. I haven't really played 4, 5 or 6 yet, so I look forward to giving them a try one day to see where they took the series after this. That's it for this episode. Join me again next Tuesday as I review another PS2 title. In the meantime, take care.